In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues that plague the underserved and marginalized communities and how we can best inspire and motivate to get these situations handled and under control. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Reneldo Randall. Reneldo is an MBA, is a dynamic and savvy authority on successful leadership and advancing human and intellectual capital. A big picture visionary who understands how daily operations shape results and goals. As a motivated achiever, he is recognized domestically and abroad for combining excellence, integrity, and innovation with the best practices and common sense to achieve immediate and long-term goals. As a higher education administrator, professor, consultant, manager, and social entrepreneur, he is an effective manager of people with unsurpassed interpersonal skills. Renaldo is gifted in uniquely assimilating information and skillfully delivering it with greater value. Reneldo serves as the Director of Advising for the College of Sciences at Old Dominion University and chairs the Pre-Health Advisory Committee. He formerly served as the inaugural chair of the Board of Directors for Black Brand Hampton Roads Black Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Randall is the co-founder, chief executive officer, and chair of the board for Real People Educating Others, REPO, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Reneldo is a former adjunct business professor at Bryant and Stratton College and a graduate of United Way's award-winning Project Inclusion Board Governance Leadership Program. He is the CEO and principal consultant for Bridge Builder and Associates, LLC. He is also the co-author of Friends in Business, the #1 book in the world on family, friends, and familiarity business dynamics, as well as a partner with the Friends in Biz Consulting Group. Additionally, Mr. Randall is a minority business investor and community leader. He is pursuing his PhD in workforce and organizational development at Old Dominion University. Reneldo is married to Dr. Ashley Randall, and they have 3 children, Bree, 26, Ryan, 13, and Reagan, 9. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Mr. Reneldo Randall. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well on what I like to call this pre-Friday.
I know that's right. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be
here, is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get the show going?
No, I think the bio was long enough. It's good to hear that stuff. I did do that once upon a time. So that was great, man. I appreciate that.
Well, not a problem. And let's get into the show then. I want to start with your career as an educator. And can you tell us what inspired you to pursue a career in education?
I think that education kind of pursued me. And so, like many young people, I think I was a first generation college student, had an opportunity to go to college, played a little football. But while I was in college, I got involved in extracurriculars, leadership on the non-academic side of things, but didn't know that that was a career path until I got to college, right? That I could work for a university in a non-academic teaching type space. But as I got into that non-academic teaching, non-academic, non-teaching type space, while I was working with students and advising, I learned that I was also good at delivering information and training and development, and so that also paid dividends in the classroom. So I kind of stumbled into it. I always say it chose me, and it kind of really just never left college. Once I graduated college, I just kind of never left the college space, and so I found a lane where I could use a lot of my skills and abilities. And so, like I said, it kind of found me, and I've been of service. I feel like I'm on, like to say, I'm on assignment in university life.
Oh, wow. So, how has your role as director of advising at ODU shaped your approach to students?
Yeah, sure. ODU is a large research institution in urban Hampton Roads area, Norfolk, and so we see a lot of large military influence, a large Navy base, Air Force base, and so those are familiar with the area understand exactly what I mean. So just a diverse swath of people from all over the place, and so being a minority man working at this type of institution, being fairly young when I started, still being fairly young, I'm able to be example visually, right? But also I'm able to be a person that they can come to and talk to about things that they may not feel comfortable talking to other people on campus about, right? And so I feel like for some people, I'm their first um, what I would call academic, not academic, but intellectual mentor, right? And so those people that were like me, the first generation college students, those people that feel like maybe they don't belong at points, find a kind of safe haven with me. And so that really has helped me to get around campus and do other things and be a part of committees and be pulled on a lot, which I appreciate and I welcome. And so that opportunity to be kind of a small fish in a big pond has worked out great for me, and it's been able to give me the kind of illumination I've needed for the young people to see me, to pull on me, to lean on me. And so those are the kind of things that my position here at ODU has done for, I feel like, me and my exposure, access to the students, and students also access to me.
So, can you tell us how has the Hampton Roads area influenced some of the skill sets or some of the resources that you use when it comes to teaching your students?
Right. So I think the Hampton Roads area is also just diverse, right? We are probably 5 hours from DC, 8 hours for Georgia. So we're nestled nicely on the East Coast between urban South and rural South as well. But right there, state capital, up the road, DC up the road, and then the northern states. And so I think that me being in this area, there's a certain type of, I'm gonna use a very technical word, there's a certain type of swagger that you have. And so I think that that helps, right, for people, because and then you think about the type of people that we get here. We get people from all over the world. Like I live within an hour or 2 hours, there's 7 universities, people from all over the country, institutions like ODU with all the diversity I spoke about. There's 7 of them, right, within a 2-hour drive. Then you have the military influence, right? And so with that type of diversity, that type of melting pot here in the 757, it's kind of helped me adapt to who I am so that I can be like a chameleon when I need to be, right? I can be able to tap in really to my emotional intelligence, and I can work with people from all races, ethnicities, creeds, social economic backgrounds, right? And so that can be tricky. And if you're isolated in a place and you don't have the type of exposure you would like we do in the Hampton Roads area, you might not have that same type of skill set or tools in your tool belt.
Well, I can say it's been a few years since I've been there. That used to be my old stomping grounds, but I definitely am familiar with that area, and I definitely love it. Because you're right, there's so much to do, and it's like there's like beautiful scenery all around. What challenges have you faced as an educator, and how have you overcome them?
As an educator, I think that obviously the generations change. And so I have a slogan, change or die. I didn't, that's not it's my slogan that I use. I didn't create it, but it's just change or die. And so just being able to change and be flexible and pivot. We here at ODU want to be a student ready campus. And so I really took that to heart, right? Because I was a student ready professor and educator before people started talking about that, right? And so each generation, the young people change because of the exposure experiences and what happened to them in their short lifetime for traditional age students. And so just being authentic, I think, is important, but also just realizing that each generation is different, being able to identify what the differences are, being able to communicate with them, talk that not get on their level, but be able to speak their language and have them talk to you openly and share their experiences and their thoughts, right? So it helps you to be a better educator because you understand where they're coming from. And so I also lead a lot of student organizations, which also helps me to mentor these young people so I can see them grow and I kind of see where they start, see what makes them tick, why they are, who they are when they get here, and then how they change and what it takes to kind of get them to make those positive changes and be grown and groomed while they're at institution. And so I think those are critical, right? Just being authentic, watching what's going on with their generation, being willing to change. Because the important thing is about, instituting knowledge, right? Education. And so not being stuck in rote delivery of information, but giving them what they need, when they need it, how they need it is critical in a fast-paced, changing world like we're living in.
So, can you tell me if you know this? How many of your students, or how many students in your school, are actually representing the underserved and marginalized communities?
Wow. So ODU is a diversity serving institution. So we're a large research institution, but we have a historically black college up the road for us, Norfolk State. Last time I checked, there was a stat out that ODU graduates more minorities than Norfolk State, right? So
Wow.
but keep in mind we are a larger institution, but we graduate more students than the HBCU up the road of that same, right, of background. We also like 30% first generation, 30%, 30 to 33% Pell eligible students, right? And so you kind of see what that is with social economics. And so we have a good bit of individuals that are, like, once again, diversity, but first generation as well, right? And so people that look like me, um, people that look like the rainbow, right? Look like the rainbow, look like the representation of the whole world. And so
Right.
yeah, it's pretty. ODU was pretty good. I went to an institution where it wasn't so much, right? And so I can really appreciate ODU, what ODU does in this space.
Oh, wow. So, can you share a memorable moment from your time as an adjunct professor?
Yeah, sure. Man, I was adjuncting young, and so memorable moments are always like interesting, right? So they come when I feel like students leave and you don't see them for a long time, and then you run into them long after they were under your tutelage and they're able to share with you something that you imparted in them and that they still use, and maybe it's changed their life. So I think that's really important, right? Because it's the knowledge that you gave them in class that they actually used in life and work, and hopefully they'll teach that to somebody else. So one thing that's happened a couple of times, but one that comes to mind clearly because it happened recently as a student. This wasn't directly related to the class, but a student came to me. I gave them a Excel sheet I use for my bills, right? Because you think students come to college, they don't really understand what it is to adults, right? They just come in, living their best lives. And so I sat down with this student and showed him how to work his bills, right? Like, this is what it looks like to pay bills and how you prioritize it. And I had given him an Excel on a flash drive. He still had the flash drive and he still had the Excel and he was using it, but now he's married. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
think that was pretty impactful. I was teaching business, but in that capacity, it was more about he opened up, he shared, right? So that's that connection. So I was teaching them the business stuff, but what I taught him about finances, basic finances was going to benefit him far more throughout his life, no matter what he did career wise. And so that one sticks out. But it's usually people that come back and remember something that stuck with them, a mental imprint that that happened when they were in my class or an advisee of mine. So that was pretty powerful. And that's the impact you want to have, right? You want to be able to touch people in that way.
Yes, you do. You do. How do you balance academic advising with your other professional responsibilities?
Balance. How do I balance? I'm a professional juggler, right? There's a visual out there where you don't keep your hand on one thing too long. That's what a juggler does, right? They don't keep their hand on one thing too long. So theoretically, it's that, but sometimes one thing requires more of me than another thing, right? And so it's just about prioritizing. Sometimes you have to burn the candle at both ends, and that used to be a popular thing to talk about, right? For people that were entrepreneurs, like no sleep, just hustle, get it done. That's unhealthy. And so just balancing, having good time management, and everything shifts, right? Everything shifts. So it's a continuous balancing act, but also using technology, leaning on your team, leaning on your partners, right? And making sure that you all have good understandings, I think is critical too. So you want to hire great people and partner with great people and outwork those people, right? So I think that's a good recipe, right? So hire great people, outwork the people, but also make sure that you're utilizing them when you need to make shift some efforts to another space that you're working in.
Okay. So, what strategies do you use to engage students in meaningful discussions about their future?
So I think it happens before the initial discussion. So once again, just building a rapport. I like to talk straight, but out of love. But you have to have the rapport. You have to have a good sense. I usually will tell students, I will say permission to speak freely, and their antennas automatically perk up. And then whatever I have to say, because of the pre-existing relationship and that one statement, it lands a little bit better. And then after I say whatever it is that I feel like needs to be said, very concisely, then I just let them talk. And then I ask good questions afterwards. A lot of why questions are small things like from negotiation. These are negotiation skills like, right? Because that triggers them to continue talking to tell more. Or I'll repeat the last thing that they just said, which causes them to say more. So it's all about having them talk, because usually they know they have the answer somewhere, right? Or they
Mhm.
don't. And they'll get to a point of exhaustion where they've said everything that needs to be said. And they'll realize that they don't have the answer, or they do have the answer. They just need it to be pulled out. So it's that consulting game where you put somebody else's watch on your wrist and you tell them what time it is.
Oh, wow. So, have there ever been moments to where you've had some struggles with some of your students that where you had some that were kind of like just lagging behind the majority of the class, and you had to spend extra time with them?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. Those are my favorite students because they probably are the millionaires in the room. They're the ones that need the TLC, but it happens all the time. You always have those. I'm just glad that they made it to where they're at, and so somebody got them to me, and it's now incumbent upon me to help get them to the next level. Those that are ready and want to invest in themselves, and that happens all the time. I was that student, I'm sure at some point, and so somebody invested in me, and so yeah, I absolutely do that. And they know pretty quickly that I'm willing to, and I find that they actually come to me for that help and support. Um, where in other classes it may just be them struggling, they
Mhm.
feel more open coming to me for the help and support. I'm able to kind of help and guide them through that.
Okay. How do you incorporate leadership and purpose into your educational philosophy?
It's wow. It is a part of everything that I do, and so it's a part of everything that I relate to them. Right. So mindset is critical. Leadership is something that is in each and every one of the students, and I help them understand that. And it's really the nucleus by which they live their life, right? And people view them, right? It's going to be critical for their brand, and so I talk about that a lot for the type of class I teach as well. right? Like your presence, how you present, the consistency. And so we talk about mindset and having a positive mindset and a growth mindset. And so I always talk about it because leadership is kind of my thing. So I talk about it more than most people, but I also hope that I'm demonstrating it, right? Some of my assignments will cause them to tap into their own leadership and focus on what their limiting beliefs might be.
Oh, okay. What advice would you give to aspiring educators who want to make a difference?
Be authentic, come in and be yourself. Work with the least of these, right? So some of the students will come in and have some challenges using strategies that are timely strategies, right? Not afraid to step into what technology has given us to help these students learn and kind of meet them where they're at, right? But also not being afraid to be authentic, but also being open minded because there's going to be people that come from places and have done things or do things that you're not familiar with. And so treating each person individual but fairly, and also just remember using all the tools at their disposal.
Wow. So, do you ever find yourself sometimes, having to, maybe uh, go an extra step to help your students to learn the skill of how to critically think? Because I know with a lot of young people today, I haven't seen a lot of critical thinking, and it's almost like they don't know how. Do you
Right.
find yourself in a situation where you're actually teaching them how to do that?
Yeah, all the time. Every opportunity when speaking with a student and asking questions is an opportunity to get them to think critically. And you're right. There's an absence of students' ability to think critically, and so every time I get an opportunity to do that, I take advantage of it. So if I was a couple of clubs and organizations where I'm able to do that a lot because I call on them to be creative to solve problems that have just come up. Right, nobody planned for it, and even with the coursework, giving them things to solve real life problems so they have to think critically, right? This isn't something that you read out of a book entirely. This is something you have to create new with the things in your mind, with the things that your team has, right, in their heads, and then some research as well. But it calls you to think critically, and so asking the why question continuously helps them to do that. And people don't do that with them enough, and to cause them to think deeply and a little bit longer than they're used to, because everything now is microwave, right? There's social media, and so everything comes to them quickly. So causing them to think deeply for a little bit longer helps with their critical thinking and retention.
So, how has your educational background influenced your teaching and advising methods?
So my educational background, so I have a computer information systems degree, which helps me understand the analytical stuff and how difficult things can be with some of those quantitative classes. My MBA helps me because I think strategically, and so I help them think strategically. And then of course my degree that I'm completing, my PhD, helps me think strategically, but research, asking deep questions and asking people to prove what they say, right? Show me to prove I need to see some receipts. And so I think that combination, along with everything I picked up along the way, in entrepreneurship and community work, I think gives me a nice little gumbo for how I deliver and I talk and work with students and help them through the educational process.
What role does education play in addressing social and economic disparities?
I believe education is a great equalizer. And so the more of you have, the better the playing field becomes for you. Um, also believe, they say knowledge is power, but I feel like knowledge executed, which is wisdom, is the real power. So not only teaching them how to do things, but teaching them how to do things in practice and giving them the encouragement, really putting the battery in the back to push them out and go do things that they're uncomfortable with, right? I always say you have to be uncomfortable until you become comfortable, right? And so that's how you grow and become stronger in anything. And academics is not excluded.
Okay, so let's transition over to your life in consulting. What led you to become a life, leadership, and business strategist?
So just my career and my heart, I think. So, when you're branding yourself, you got to be careful, right? You can't be everything to everybody. But I really think with my jobs and my passions, it's always about helping people in their life. So whatever they want to do, right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately it boils down to your life. And so helping people navigate their life. And of course, I talked about leadership was my thing. Like everybody lead somebody, and understand what good leadership and what good fellowship looks like and feels like was important. And so those things are critical, and I felt like they need to be a part of my brand. And then the business is something that I know and learned as a part of my trade, but I've worked into. And so those three is where I found, like, if people could master those and understand those, I saw a need there. And so that's where I decided to focus my energies and place my talents.
So, how do you help clients achieve self mastery and communication mastery?
Yes, I focus on self mastery, communication mastery, and well, in this order: self mastery, people mastery, communication mastery. And so I use a several battery of tests or assessments, so they can go through and they can figure out, like, Myers Briggs. Um, there's a slew of them out there, but kind of identify what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, who they work with well, who they may not work with well. Why is that the case? Why? What's their unique value proposition to the marketplace? And so once they understand themselves, then they can start to understand other people around them and how the interplay between them working together, how that looks, and how they can kind of make it productive and even control it. And then once they learn how to master themselves and people, then they can communicate with people better, right? And communication is a lot, right?
Mhm.
Posture, voice, tempo. The lat, the least part of communication is what you say out of your mouth, but then you can communicate with people better to get things done in a productive, effective, and efficient way. So when you master yourself, you understand how to master other people and make them their best and work with them, and then you communicate with everyone to get things done efficiently and effectively.
Well, can you share a success story from your consulting work?
Absolutely. Um, wow, there's lots. Okay, so I had recently worked with. This one's gonna be a business consulting, right? So it's this stuff is woven into it, but it's a young lady that I work with who wanted to. She didn't necessarily want to start a business. She wanted to strengthen how she was marketing, taking in clients. But we ended up talking a little bit more. She was working for somebody. We ended up going through what it would look like for her to start a business. And she ended up starting the business, something she never intended on doing. But part of it was helping her figure out who she was, the self mastery, building up the confidence, right? She has a counseling service, and then the people mastery, right? She was scared to hire people. She didn't think she would have enough business to do it quick enough. She quickly reached that goal where she was able to get people, master them, get them to um, fall under her so that they could display and present her brand, the type of brand she wanted to present to her clients, and then the communication master. And so then it all came together where they were really disciples of her in a way, right? They were many versions of her, and the communication, the way it looked like to external clients was just beautiful, right? Because everything was in unison, everything had synergy. But first, she had to have her own awakening, right? Which was a self mastery, understand how she moved, who she worked well with, what are her leadership traits and attributions, and then finding the right type of people to work with that will be willing to be followers long enough to understand her culture and the way she wanted to do business, and then being able to communicate that throughout her company and to her future clients.
So, can I ask you this? With your consulting that you do, are you finding it more that more people are going to entrepreneurship and wanting to get away from the corporate environment and work for themselves?
I'm finding that that's been an interest for a lot of people, particularly over right after COVID. I think a lot of people are wanting to do something for themselves. Some of them in retirement, some of them on the side. So yes, and then but some people don't really know what they're getting themselves into because, of course, they're trading in the 9 to 5 for the 24/7, and they're not quite ready for that.
Yep. Can you tell us what are the key qualities of effective leadership in your opinion?
I think having a strong emotional intelligence. I think that being willing to be vulnerable. Um, I think taking risk is important, like trusting your people,
Mhm.
and then wanting to be transformative, wanting to grow your people. I think is important as well. So I think that those four are probably the top four. Whatever your leadership style is, I feel like you have to have those four in order to be effective. Because good leaders should grow good leaders.
Mhm. Now, one term that that you mentioned in those four qualities that stuck out to me is emotional intelligence. Can you do us a favor, please, and like break emotional intelligence down a little bit more to
Right.
where it kind of like spreads out because it's like it's a whole lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. So, the first of all, emotion. What is it? Intelligence without emotion is not intelligent, right? So I say that in some of right. So that's the first thing, right? So if you are intelligent and you think you're a leader, like you're the smartest person in the room, but you're not including emotion, then that's not intelligent, right? So you already don't have emotional intelligence. But it's this idea, EQ, it's idea of getting a temperature of what's happening with your people and what's happening in the room. A good decision, well, excuse me, a good idea at the wrong time is a bad idea, right?
Yes, it is.
Because you have to have enough emotional intelligence to know, is this the right idea? Is this the right time and place and space to mention this idea, right? Right? Are people in the right headspace? Is the company in the right place financially, right? Um, did people have their coffee this morning? Is it too late? Is it too early in the day? Right? What's going
Mhm.
on? Is the fourth quarter? Is this not a good time in the business cycle? When you're thinking about your employees, like, okay, did somebody's dog die? Don't come to them with the to-do list or come to them with something that you need to reprimand them about at a time where they're not going to be able to receive it. Or if something's happening with your employee where there's a declining um, work ethic, but that's not typically who they are, thinking to yourself like, wow, something must be going on with them, except thinking something must be going on with them instead of just approaching them with, hey, I noticed you didn't do this on time or you did this incorrectly. Changing that language and that stance to, hey, everything going on? I noticed that some things have been a little different about you, right? So it's that leading with emotion, understanding what's going on around you, with your people, with your company, um, before you ask for things, before you do things, before you present things. So that's what it is. Just having an awareness of what's going on with company and people, so that you can have a better impact and effect by doing things at the right time.
How do you approach the delicate balance between work and personal life in your coaching?
Um, I just wow. So there's a contract that we have, right? There's a conversation that we have. We talk about, well, what is coaching, what is consulting, what is mentorship, right? That's literally in there. I think I could do a good job of building rapport, but not crossing the line, right? But you do need to build that rapport in order to give good news, to give bad news, to require to enable people to want to be flexible. So you need to incorporate that good spirit and that rapport and that influence, but you also need to know how to draw the lines and some do's and don'ts. And really, it's the emotional intelligence pops up again because you have to get a sense of where is the emotional intelligence of your client, right? So how much laughing and joking can we do? How much off topic talking can we do? And how can I bring it back? And some of that be based on your emotional intelligence to understand and be able to identify where they are in their intelligence emotionally.
Wow. So, so in your everyday life with all the consulting that you do, and with just the many hats that you have to wear, when it comes down to consulting all together, do you take a combination of all the skill sets that you have in order to make sure that your clients are able to take um, the actual message that you want them to have? I mean, like when you're actually consulting, do you consult for your people to really be next level or to just stay even keel and you continuously to guide them?
So yeah, I don't want to continuously guide them if I don't have to, right? So that'd be the difference between coaching and consulting.
Mhm.
So you need to know. So people would need to know the difference really there. Excuse me. So the difference between coaching and consulting, because some of it is going to require both, right? If I'm coaching you, I can guide you, but there's a goal we're shooting for. If I'm consulting, I'm there to do a job, and I'm there. It's there's going to be some quantitative measures that we're shooting for, that we're reaching for. There may require some coaching, particularly in mindset, because they may not see it for themselves. But then it's really consulting, and consulting is get you to the next level. We agreed upon this is need your company wants to accomplish. We've quantified it. We're going to reach that goal, right? And I'm going to make it a stretch goal. Coaching still going to make it a stretch goal, but coaching is all about developing the person, right, and getting them. And you may stay with them a while once you figure out what kind of outcomes and outputs you're looking for out of that relationship. So it's a little bit of both, but ultimately you do want to cut the apron strings because you want to teach a person to fish. You don't want to continue to fish for them. And so either way it goes, there's an end date, at least for that project or that agreed upon output.
So do you normally set like an agenda, an outline of some sort that they need to follow, and you explain that to them, or just for everything that you do for just a particular subsection of what they need or what they're asking you for, you just go through it in that manner?
It's more the former, right? Because we're going to break apart the project. Okay, what do we need to do? Let's focus on the things that need to be done first. When I'm with the Black Chamber of Commerce, we have a B Force, which is a business accelerator, and there's certain things you have to have done first before we can move on to other things, right? So that's one way to guide it. But yeah, so it's much like class, right? We're going to go through some things. We're going to talk through some things. You're going to leave with some assignments. I'm going to leave with some assignments. We'll come back. We're going to revisit the assignments, and then we're going to work through the plan that way. So yeah, there's definitely a plan of action, but the plan of action is usually discussed up front based on what the client thinks they need, and then my assessment of what they need. And we need to agree upon that, and then we can chart a way forward that makes sense, and we can put some timelines and some deadlines to that.
Okay. So what inspired you to write Friends in Business, and what impact has it had?
So Friends in Business. So my best friend and I do probably 90% of our business together. We were both encouraged separately to write books, and we couldn't figure out what book to write that would be interested people. I would write a leadership book. I don't know what he would write. He would write a networking book maybe, but there's tons of books out there. We just felt like we'd be adding another book to that space, which would have been cool, but it just didn't feel right. And so we started brainstorming about what would make sense for us to do that's not already in the market space that could be our thing. And what we do is we are friends in business, and it's one of those things where people tell you not to do and it's frowned upon, but there's a lot of successful people in industry and enterprise. And so we decided to do a book for that because you're going to have friends in business, right? For those who want to be entrepreneurs, but that's clubs, organizations, sororities, fraternities, all of those things require teamwork, working together. And if those people want your friends to start, they become familiarity partners, right? Because you spend more time with the people you work with. And so those relationships needed to be brokered. And so we created a book for that purpose. And then the results have been great, right? We've had a review. One review that sticks out is a young lady said if she had read that book before her husband started his business, they would have still been married. And so I think that was pretty important. But first, on family, friends, and familiarity partners, because nobody's written about it. And so we had an interesting perspective. We've been doing it for 30 years together. And so we just felt like that made the most sense. And it's always going to be a book that's relevant because somebody's always going to do some type of endeavor with a friend, family member. And if not, somebody they meet at work is going to become like family, and they're going to have to work with them. And so understanding how to broker those relationships while still keeping the friendship is going to be important for everybody's mental health.
Oh, wow. Now, I think that's really interesting because conceptually, were you guys thinking along the lines of just establishing relationships in a networking way, or just what family was just all about and just creating a camaraderie?
I think both, right? I think as we were writing it, and even after we released it, we was like, wow, this fits in a lot of different places, right? Like people
Mhm.
just need to know how to work with people that they've formed friendships with. Like you and I could be friends in a company. I become your boss. Now our relationship changes, right?
Mhm.
Or we've grown up together. You know me. Excuse me. We grew up together. You know me in one way, but now I've evolved in life, and you can't forget the guy I used to be, and so you don't respect my skill set, and so it's difficult for us to do business now, right? Or you can't forget the
Right.
one thing I did with my finances, and now you're scared to invest with me, and so all those things need to be looked at if you're interested in doing business with people that you know, love, and trust.
Wow. So that's really I think that's like a little natural thing that happens with I guess family and friends, is because I think when one outgrows the other, I think it kind of like brings about a little rivalry to some extent. Was that one of the things that you guys were thinking about when you wrote this book?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we knew that too. Like we did some surveying to find out why people didn't want to do business with friends, and we mentioned some of that in the book, and we were just able to bypass that stuff. And so we were like, okay, whatever we were doing, let's bottle it up and teach it to other people. Right? There's this
Okay.
rival. How do you get around that? Why is that? Right? My brother is
Yeah.
my other self. So why is that? Like you don't want, yeah, like if I was a stranger and you found out the same thing, you would give me more respect than the person that loves you and's been there for you, right? And so this
Right.
is also this idea of that, like when we come into this business partnership, we know that there's more at stake than just the business, and that can be a negative or a positive, but also this person too, right? And so that they should do right by you. Probably the one of yeah one of the probably the toughest pains if that doesn't go right, because not only do you lose a business, you also lose a friend. And
Mhm.
so, right, or if we do business with a stranger who is a stranger, you don't know him, you come into a business relationship, and the business breaks up, it breaks up, bad or good, but that's it. With the friend or family member, you still have to deal with them in the social circles, family reunions, and such. So yeah, it's a tricky dynamic. It was worth writing about.
So is there a book two coming?
Not sure if it's gonna be on the same topic. There may be like an addendum to book one, but there's certainly more books coming from us, maybe together, but also separately.
How do you tailor your consulting services to meet the unique needs of different clients?
I do just that. I go in and I cater it. So there's certain strategies out there that everybody can tap into, but I want to go in and I want to find out what's going a true needs analysis, right? Because some people think they need a thing, but they don't really know what they need. And so going in and asking those strategic questions to find out what it is that they feel like they need, what's going on. Sometimes that's of the person that brings you in to start, the person that sought you out. But then you start looking at the people that are also stakeholders, right? To get
Mhm.
their opinions and perspectives so you can really figure out, well, what's the issue? And then you can start from what is you've identified as the true issue as the external expert. And then you go from there, you start talking about, is there an ingredient, right? If there isn't, let's talk through why that might be the case, what I see, what you see, and maybe revisit some things. But once we get to an agreement, we start to move forward and start to solve some of those problems that we see, right? And so solving the problems is really what the consultant should be doing, solving the problems and making things work more efficiently and effectively.
Mhm. So, what trends do you see in the consulting industry, and how do you adapt to them?
I feel like there's a lot of consultants out there. And
Mhm.
so, just making sure you find your client, right? I tell people there's a lot of different pizza places out there too, but people still buying pizza from Papa John's and Pizza Hut and Domino's and specialty pizzas. And so, not to get discouraged by the fact that there's a lot of people in the marketplace. Um, I think there's a lot of people out there there's a lot of access to credentials that are not not true credentials, they're maybe like certificates. And so for people in search of consultants, that it might be tricky to figure out who has the right credentials to really help them out. And so I think identifying business, and then when you identify business, getting those people to understand that you're the expert in the consulting and they're the expert in their industry. And then once again, showing them and getting them to get on board with some of the things that you see, not what they brought you on for, because usually what they're bringing you on for is not the root cause. It's a symptom of what the root cause is. And so them being open to seeing what the root cause is and solving issues at the root.
So would you think, or would you say that a lot of people that are in the consulting industry are basically looking or starting out based on a niche?
For some, but I do think there's some that are generalists. So I'm more of a I'm a generalist, but as you can see, I have certain specialty areas. I think that they should have a niche, because I think some people are coming out, and this was me in the beginning too, trying to be everything to everybody, right? Trying to get a lot of the market share, if you will. But the thing is, you should have your niche. There should be certain clients that come to you because you are the subject matter expert. You are the world renowned person that focuses on marketing or accounting or strategy. So I think that you do need to have a niche and not be afraid of doing that, but also being very thoughtful about what your niche is.
How do you measure the success of your consulting engagements?
If we we want to meet the goals, right? If the goals are met, so if the goals are met, it's successful. I mean, you can measure it also by, and sometimes knowing if it's successful takes some time because you need to do some like post analysis stuff, right? But there can be you can see some small wins. You can do some surveys and figure things out. But ultimately, you want the client to be happy, and whatever you agreed upon as an output or outcome, you want to see that come to fruition.
What motivates you to continue growing as a consultant?
Because I'm a lifelong learner. I want to be smart. I want to continue to exercise my big muscle. There's so much to learn and know. The world is changing so fast with AI and robotics and all different type of technologies. I feel like there's still going to need to be people to come in and see the things that you can only see with a third eye, and help with some of these soft skills that can't be done by computers and anything that's run by a computer and our latest and greatest technology.
So, you as an educator, and then the work that you do as a consultant, how do you make those two mesh together when it comes to dealing with your clients and building business? How does that work?
Well, when you think about it, it's a nice marriage, right? Because I have to teach them. I have to be patient with them, right? So the education comes in really well. Teaching them, and that's really it, because teaching them, being patient, walking them through the process, understanding adult learning theory too, like, because I'm working with adults, different than when you work with, traditional age. And so it really helps, because being able to explain things methodically, going over them, restating them, like, that's important. And delivering things in different modalities, right? Because not everybody learns and picks up things the same way on the first time either, right? So understanding how to educate a person when you're trying to consult with a person, because part of consulting is also educating, right? And sometimes uneducating and reteaching. And so I think that the educational background and training helps with that.
So when you mention uneducating, now that's got to be an interesting concept or philosophy to use.
Right.
How would you actually break that down and determine which one of your clients may need that, and what would that look like?
So, I mean, it comes through discussion, and because they are adults and they've held on to that, whatever they think, they've held on to that, and that's probably been a part of them. And so it's difficult to address, but you can, once again, it's the rapport, it's emotional intelligence. Should I say something now? Should I say something at all? Should I, should we skip this concept? How big of it how big of it is an issue or a problem in the grand scheme of things, right? So you have to think through all those things. But it can be if you, because of the education piece, because you're good at educating and getting information to people quickly and concisely, then you can possibly get them to understand and do a paradigm shift. Maybe in that moment, if it's glaring, but also it could take a little while, and that could be okay too, particularly if you're going to be working with them for a little while, because they can once again trust you, they can see your work, and you can reiterate what you were talking about as you're trying to get them to understand how they need to unlearn, right? If I have more time with you, I can say, hey, you may not be aware of this, but this is why that no longer happens, or that's a fallacy, that's an untruth. And as we go through this process, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Wow. Okay, let's shift over to your work with your nonprofit as a community advocate. What inspired you to co-found Real People Educating Others?
Just a need, right? So we saw a need, and so we stepped in the gap, right? And so at the time, and just like everything I've been talking about, evolution and changing and pivoting. I mean, at that point, and it still exists. It was just, we were seeing a lot of young minority men in particular, killing one another, or um, participating in behaviors that they shouldn't, unbecoming behaviors. And so we wanted to do something. And so we started doing some things to help young people be a little bit more productive, and we wanted to be more sustainable in doing that. And so a nonprofit seemed like it made sense. And so that's where we came up with that idea, and where the roots of RPO started.
So, how does RPO address the challenges faced by underserved youth?
So we do well. We have three pillars really, and so it's education, mentorship, service, and extracurricular, right? And so
Mhm,
with extracurricular, where it's basketball, it's football, so we're getting them into productive things that they can do with their energy, right?
mhm,
Channeling that into something and letting them see people that look like them doing productive things, spending time with them while at the athletic camp. Clearly, mentorship is direct access and influence, right? So in that, we're teaching them how, I mean, all of it, how to look, how to speak, careers, time management, entrepreneurship, how to buy a house, what are stocks, emotional management, right? So all those things through mentorship, which is a bit clear. And then service, right? So we show them, like, when you get to a place, you need to serve other people, right? So showing them
mhm,
how to give back early, right? Even when you're struggling, showing them how to give back. And of course, education. So harping on education, explaining how education is necessary for them in season and kind of out of season, how education is not only what you learn in school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but it's all these other things that you learn. Like I was talking about, basic finances to be a good global citizen, right?
mhm.
And so we do a lot of speaking in schools and correctional institutions as well, where we're getting in front of them, talking their talk, telling our stories in a lot of cases, but also giving them resources, right?
Mhm.
And really erasing excuses.
So, can you share a success story from RPO's initiative, from an RPO initiative?
Yeah. So there's one gentleman in particular that he he had gone through all, like, so he was probably middle school, and he had gone through like our mentorship, participated in our service projects, been to our camp several years, right? And then he invited us to his graduation, right? And so here's one of these retrospective full circle things. Invited us to his graduation. We got to his graduation. He shared how that continuous involvement and impact, and us checking in, and him being able to see us, and kind of implement. Not one to make us, one to make us proud, but also emulating us, how that kind of helped develop him as a young person. Just keep, and then wanting to keep in touch with us that after he graduated, and asking very good questions, which he would not have had anybody to ask those questions to as a young man graduating. So he was really giving us credit for getting to where he was and to graduation. That's why he invited us, and we still talk. And that's an opportunity for us to answer questions that he wouldn't have had anybody to ask those questions to as a young man. And so I think that's like what we want. That's a full cycle, like of continuous exposure to us and our programs, and then being able to be a productive citizen, asking like adult questions, and being able now to turn around and do it for somebody else, hopefully.
Mm. So, so then when your students they leave your program, do you have a graduation? And when they leave the program, I mean, like, is it always open for them to come back and to maybe revisit and talk with the other younger folk that's there in the program now?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have students so that participate in camp, go play college ball, come back and run the camp, both basketball, football. We'll have people that were in our virtual mentorship program, go to college, do things, come back, be in a virtual mentorship program. So it's always open. It's not a curriculum based thing. It's people who come in and do a thing and leave. A lot of people come back and volunteer with us. Like we have a huge back to school event where there's tons of vendors, fruit, food, school supplies, and so a lot of them will come and work that. And so yeah, lots of opportunities for them to come back and pour back in and kind of share their experiences and what the organization and the opportunities the organization provided did for them.
What are the four pillars of RPO and why are they important?
Yeah, so once more, the pillars of mentorship, service, extracurriculars, and education. And so they were important to us, right? And so we were being very careful about staying in our lane. And so we knew that we needed a mentor, right? Because I mean, everybody needs a mentor. So we knew mentorship needed to be a part of it. Education was in our name because when we think about education, we think, well, education is teaching somebody anything they don't know. So we weren't restricting it once again to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Like there's other things you need to know and be educated about. We're gonna help you get educated about that and help you understand why that's important. But we're gonna educate you about these other life things too, and why you need to govern yourself in a certain way, particularly as a minority man, but anybody, right? And so life skills and then service, we talked about that, right? Teach them how to give back, show them how to do that because we won't always be here. And so we want them to be able to carry the torch, and then extracurriculars just because we know we reach people through athletics, particularly when they're young.
So, how do you guys collaborate with other organizations to achieve RPO's mission?
Yeah, so with the service projects, a lot of organizations come out and help us, basketball teams, other organizations, Divine Nine, other civic organizations come out and serve small businesses, big businesses, corporations come and help. Um, Extracurricular activities like we bring in um, coaches from different local high schools. I think the biggest show of effort for the community is with the back to school program where we're bringing in 30, 40 vendors in the community. And so that's tons of organizations that are just there showing up to talk about their services and then other organizations actually helping to run the event. And so that's probably the biggest show of support. And everybody gets to find out who does what, how they can collaborate, work together, and actually, pass people that are attending to each other. Like we have a table where you can find out how to get money to pay for school. You can sign up for the program, and the next table hires people once they finish the program. So there's that type of opportunity at that event.
So, what role does mentorship play in RPO's programs?
RPO mentorship program is pretty critical. We've been doing it since we have a virtual mentorship program, 5-week program. It's actually happening right now, Mondays, 8 o'clock. And so that is our cornerstone program, right? And so it's used because that's where we get to see students, not nightly, but weekly, captive audience, and we get to talk to them about critical things that are going to be pertaining to their life, and we get to impart knowledge on them that we didn't get until we were in our 40s. And so we say early, what is it? Early access, early implementation. So the sooner you know about it, the sooner you can use it, right? So if we didn't hear about it till we're 40, we couldn't use it till we're 40